Hello, everybody. Welcome to the October Native American Fiber program webinar. Today we have Melanie Smokey. She's going to be our presenter today. She is an enrolled tribal member of the Yomba Shoshone tribe located on the Reese River Valley in Nevada and a descendant of the Washoe tribe. Melanie works as an educational consultant, sharing her expertise in the contemporary use of Great Basin plants for food, medicine, and basket making. She leads the development of a demonstration garden at the Stewart Cultural Center where she educates to restore the forgotten knowledge of the beneficial plants and their uses from the Great Basin. Melanie's deep commitment to the preservation of indigenous languages and culture honors survivors and descendants of the Indian boarding schools. Welcome, Melanie, and I'm going to hand it off to you. And here we go.
Thank you all for taking this time. I'm very happy to be here. I'm honored. Thank you for the invitation. I I grew up without running water or electricity, and so it was very important for and we're very rural on my reservation. We're still 2 hours away from the closest hospital and grocery store. And so knowing your resources and your surroundings was really important. And the men did their work and the women did their work, and we came together and met at the dinner table, basically. And so my grandmother was Alice Cowich Hooper and Western Shoshone, and she's the person who got me started in looking at our resources. And my mom was a cultural monitor and fighting for our Nui Sogova, making sure that our lands are that it's being heard that we're still here, basically. And so that's where it began. And then as I got older and I met my great aunts on my Washoe side, and they also were plant people and basket weavers, they basically told me what my grandma told me, and I never understood why my grandma told me that I was going to be teaching one day. And my Washoe grandmothers, they told me the same thing. So here we are. And my background is, well, the formal training, I guess I'll say. It came from after high school. I went to Humboldt State University, and I have my BA degree in education, liberal studies, and I did the teaching credential there. And then I recently received my naturalist certification. And so, but my true education, I'm very thankful to say that my grandmothers were my initial support system, and then my mother, and then all of the elders that I have had the pleasure to work with. So can we go ahead and start the slideshow?
Absolutely. Okay. Let me just move this.
So one of the first things that that I noticed when I went to school up at Humboldt State University is my the coordinator for the Indian Teacher Preparation Program had a picture of her daughters in their traditional outfits. And I looked at it, I was like, that looks just like my dress. And and theirs was made out of maple bark. And so that was really interesting. So I'm not seeing the slides up.
Oh, wait, let's see. I'm sharing my screen right now.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now.
Um, can everyone else see it?
It was on gathering traditional foods with blue and flowers. Now it went back to the first one with your name on it.
Oh, yes. Okay, there it is. I could see it. Um, yeah, so thank you for the invitation. Um, so I am now the education curator at the Stewart Indian School Culture Center and Museum. And as Priscilla had mentioned, one of the things that we are now doing there is we have a garden, and that coincides with the history of Stewart, where in the 30s, and Chris, you could chime in as well, after multiple generations of students forced assimilation, um, they also were removed from their environment, and it's the environment that provides us with our food and medicine. So that had been forgotten, and so the school actually began a garden there, and there's curriculum called Desert Friends um, that was incorporated into the curriculum so that those teachings are um, not forgotten and brought back. And that book in particular was done in Paiute. So looking at that, that's one of the reasons why we have that garden. And this is its first year, and it'll continue to grow. Um, and so if we could turn the next slide. And so the as I had mentioned, you know, our people, a lot of times when we're introducing ourselves, you know, I would say Naniane, Melanie Smokey, Yomba Baitha. We're also saying where we come from and what lands feed us. So I come from where the wild carrots grow. And what I was taught with my grandmother Alice is that gathering our foods, our medicines, it keeps us connected not only to the seasons, but it really does remind us that we're not separate from nature. And everything, you know, one of the things that gets me sometimes is when there's a reference of Indian time, and that meaning, um, you know, being tardy or being late. But really, what it means is you're living with nature, and nature doesn't wait. You know, we don't have the option of going to the grocery store and just picking something up. And um, so I really believe that this is a way that we need to get back to. And and this is really where my journey begins as a basket weaver and a harvester is is knowing what time of year you're going to go out and you're going to harvest different plants and honoring these plants as well. Okay, next slide, please. So this is my grandmother Alice, and she she didn't go to town very often. You know, like I said, it's still 2 hours away from town now, and the last hour is on dirt road. And so being highly dependent upon your knowing your surroundings and your resources was vital. And um, we come from ranching people, and even my mom, you know, when we used to play sports, she would set our bones for us if we, you know, if our I jam my finger or whatever, you know. So they had to know those things. And so, and the other thing as women, my mom is here wearing her work hat is, so I'm going to put on my work hat right now, pretend to put on my work hat because, you know, our thinking had to be very clear when we were out harvesting. And my hair is very short right now. Being in mourning for my mother. So, but again, always being respectful for being taught these things and wearing that work hat, meaning I am to be in service of the people. So that's why I accepted the invitation to speak today, being in service of the people and all of you. So thank you. Welcome. Okay, next slide. So one of the main fibers that that we work with in the Great Basin and with my Shoshone and my Washoe people collectively, all throughout Nevada, we have willow. And one of the things that goes back to the seasons is we wait until, I was taught, we wait until that first hard frost before we're able to go out and harvest, which is why I don't have a example of this. But in this picture, I'm splitting the willow into 3 parts. So you guys got to take good care of your teeth. You know, the old people used to say that, and I never understood why until I really started working with baskets. You know, you need to use your teeth to split into thirds. So, but willow is really a dominant plant that we work with in the Great Basin, and I hope you guys could see my medallion. This is made out of willow. I made this for my mom. So the size of your willow thread really was dependent upon what you were working with. For medallions, we use the very, very small. They would be, you know, the end pieces. And I use the larger willow for my heavy duty baskets, like my wosa, my burden baskets, because it's holding a lot of weight. And so depending on what you're making, always dependent upon the kind of material that you're going to go out and gather and process. And so, but willow is truly important to our people in the Great Basin. Okay, next slide. And I'm also a member of the Great Basin Native Basketry Association, as well as the California Indian Basketry Association. And one of the goals is to make sure that the teaching gets passed on. And this is my little niece. And you see the willow behind her. And you know, teaching her the importance of when you pick willow and why we wait. And you could see the snow behind her. She really enjoys wearing her basket hat. And I wanted to kind of spend some time talking about that because for her, for example, you know, we've taught her, you know, you don't take your hat off and set it down anywhere, because until you're done working for that day, you know, you leave your hat on and you continue to be in service. So passing on this kind of knowledge is really important. And you see that sagebrush behind her. And all of the things in this picture are all medicines and foods and the different baskets that we use to harvest these plants. And then, but also she's holding a boat basket, and with the doll in there, that was her boat basket. She was a preemie when she was born, and so she was tiny and fit in that boat basket for a long time. But I really do take as much time as I can to teach her about the baskets and the different plants. Okay, next slide. So this is a Washoe boat basket, and this boat basket was used for the first 30 days of a child's life. So in the Great Basin, you know, our very lives began in a basket. And so when this basket, or when the 30 days was up, then the child was taken out to the community and introduced to the community. And so, but prior to that, the mom and baby stayed home with their immediate family, gaining strength, and their, if they were looking strong and healthy, then their cradle board would be made. And upon the 30 days in their baby celebration, then that baby would graduate into their cradle board, and this basket would have been dismantled and put in the mud next to the river, or it would have been floated down the river. And this is one of those practices that is making a comeback. Okay, next slide. So this picture is about sagebrush. And if you can, I don't know if you could zoom in on the picture behind the vehicle there. So in the Great Basin, a lot of times our houses were built very specifically with the resources. And so if you look behind that truck, that house is completed and it's made out of sagebrush bark. So again, our willow is important. And this is the same way that we do our sweat lodge as well, but using the willow. So there again, willow is being used as the frame for this house. And then there's another house to the right, and that one is being made. If you look in front of this frame, this willow frame, this is the plant here. The tall plant is our native ryegrass, and so that ryegrass is also being used in building the house in the back over there. Okay. And so, so sagebrush is Nevada's state flower, and it's really important to our people here in the Great Basin. So you saw the full sagebrush being used for the house, but sagebrush was also used for spiritual purification. And then, but also, and so that's why I have the stick of sage there bundle. And then beside it is the sage bark. And so the sage bark is, with Nevada having such a decline with water, it's impacting our sagebrush. And people who don't work with the plant wouldn't know, but I have a hard time trying to find long pieces and fluffy, healthy pieces of sage bark. Okay. And the reason why it's really important is our clothing was made out of sage bark. You know, some people say that, you know, if you're in a ribbon dress, they'll say, "Oh, you know, you're in your traditional attire." And I'm like, this is our traditional attire for our Shoshone people. My grandmother made this for me, and you could see that even my doll has a sagebrush bark outfit from head to toe. And then in the wintertime, you know, we had rabbit blankets, and there's my rabbit outfit as well from head to toe. And so working with those fibers, whether it was working with the sagebrush bark or working with the rabbit hides, you know, that's considered a fiber as well. And what we're using to tie it together mattered also. So when I was saying that the men did things and the women did things, well, the men were getting our sinew for us. Okay. So again, in Shoshone, we say bohovit for our big sage. And this is a picture of my niece and her wearing my outfit. And our bohovi, our grandmother, would use that. And if you were being naughty, you had to be really naughty in order for her to say, "I'm going to smoke you," because on a spiritual level, this plant is used for clearing negativity. And so if you were being naughty, grandma would smoke you down with the sagebrush. And but it's also the home of our sage hen, and um, so it's very important to our people, as important as our willow. And um, some people are allergic to the smoke, and so we use distilled sage water for smudging as well. Okay. So this is a picture of some of the baskets that I have at the museum. And these are just a few different styles of baskets that we used. So from the boat basket, we would have graduated into a cradle board. And so the cradle board shown here is a Shoshone cradle board, which is standing against the wall. It's a doll basket, a miniature, and then we had water jugs, and then bottles and baskets that we would use to hold our food throughout wintertime, our winnowing trays, our work baskets, and our wosa, our to go out and harvest the plants with. Okay. And so we use different plants depending on your resources again. And it's pine nut season right now. And when we're out there and we're using our baskets, sometimes the weight of our bounty can crack your basket. And in that case, you're looking at what's around you. And most of the time, you're going to find wild rose. And so our wild rose is used differently for men and women. Number one, you know, there's that phrase, take time to smell the roses. This has such a lovely smell to it, but when you take it in like that, you know, even visually, it's such a beautiful flower. And but the fragrance is also a secondary part of taking in that medicine from this plant. And then, of course, those flowers turn into the rose hips, which is really high in vitamin C, and it's a food source. And so, but going back to the fiber itself, as a basket maker, if my basket had cracked, then we would look for the wild rose and take off the the sharp ends, and then the use the stick to fix our basket, because this plant will dry hard and it dries fast, and so you could shape it and you won't miss a beat with getting back to work. And but the men also use this with their arrow shafts. They would make that. Okay. And so the other plant that was really important for our cradle boards, I didn't have time to show a picture, but back home we would also be using birch. Birch was a very important plant for us as well, river birch, for medicine, and then but also for our pine nut sticks, we would use birch. And then also birch would be used for the frame around the basket. But in this picture here, we're focusing in on chokecherry. And chokecherry is it's food, it's medicine, and it dries really strong. And and so so that's what the backboard of our cradle board would be made out of. And then, of course, the fibrous part, if you were to pull the skin back off of your chokecherry, you're going to see the cambium on there, and it'll smell like almonds. We use that for medicine, and I make a cough syrup with that. And so, you know, that is a really important plant to our people as well. Okay. And we have a lot of tule here. And so our tule is, you know, it's an important food also. It's one of those that you can eat the bottom of it. But also, tule is wonderful. We use it at Sundance to make our mats and bedding. We make dolls out of them, and you see the tule boat there. Okay, next slide. And then our baskets also, both contemporary and traditional. So you have an egg basket there. And, you know, if you were to go get your quail eggs or duck eggs, whatever you were looking for. And then we use the tule baskets for storing our food. And then we have a duck decoy there. And then to the right, that I was starting a new basket, because off to the far left, you'll see a glass jar. I travel with glass jars a lot when I'm transporting medicine. And so I make them in different sizes, so that if I'm carrying, you know, making up tea or something like that, this tule is great for protecting my glass jars from breaking, and it also holds in the heat. And so that's a contemporary way for me to also use this traditional style. Okay. And we don't have redbud in our traditional territory in Nevada and the Great Basin. And so the Washoe people actually traded for redbud. And it's a beautiful plant. Okay. So this is a basket that I finished this year. And the really awesome thing about working with redbud is the beautiful color, number one, but also with our willow, we're always looking for really straight sticks. And it's interesting when you're working with your redbud, it doesn't have to be completely straight. And so my sticks here, they weren't straight at all. And, I was still able to make this basket. So this is my first redbud basket. And the awesome thing about working with redbud and like I said, on my Washoe side, and even that boat basket that we looked at earlier, I'm not sure how old that basket is. That actually is a picture from the museum in Gardnerville, Nevada. But it showed redbud on there, and so the Washoe people used that a lot. And the thread is two-sided. So this whole basket is made out of redbud. So the red that you see is the outer part. You leave the skin on there, and then you flip it over to, and then you have the white showing. And so I like using redbud because you leave the skin on there. Therefore, it's really super strong where you're able to pull on it in a way that we wouldn't be able to really pull hard with our willow. So I love working with redbud because of that. Okay, next slide. And so the other thing about working with fibers is I was thinking, well, what does that mean? So I was also looking at other plants that we work with every year. This is what we call buckberry, and as you go up north, they call it buffalo berry. And since we don't have buffalo, we call it buckberry, so we have a lot of bucks. But this plant is one of those things, in order to do basketry, you need an awl. And these, the big trees, they have huge thorns, and they are sharp, and they also are really, really strong. And so we could go to the next slide. So further down, you could see some of the thorns. And if you cut it just right, you can make a nice awl out of that. That's going to be super sharp. And so all of our plants just, it's just amazing, all of the things that you could make out of the different parts of the plant. But this plant is just so high in antioxidants. If you're eating the berries, it's a wonderful source of fiber when if you eat it as well, that kind of fiber. But yeah, you could make awls out of this. It'll go right through your moccasins, so that if you're making your moccasins, using those thorns is a good awl also. Okay. And then other fibers that we use, this is my friend Mary, and she's working with yucca. In order for us to make our dresses, are working with, whether you're doing a rabbit or working with sage bark or maple bark, whatever, you need string in order to to hold all of your pieces together. And so, so yucca is one of those plants that I'm beginning to work with. And my friend Mary here works a lot with yucca. And it's super strong and a wonderful plant to make your cordage out of. Okay. And dogbane is one of those plants that my son likes to use. And I'm sure many of you have used dogbane to make your cordage. Okay. And so here in Nevada, especially in the northern territories, we have a lot of milkweed here. And so this is the preferred plant that my son likes to use to make cordage. And so if you look at the jug here, that we use that jug for transporting, like once we have collected our pine nuts, then we'll fill that jug up and carry that with us. And in order to carry it, he actually did this whole basket, but the cordage on here is made out of milkweed. And the difference between the dogwood and the milkweed is the dogwood, I'm sorry, I'm saying dogwood, dogbane is thinner, and it has more of a refinedness to it. Whereas with the milkweed, if you really look at it, it's kind of fuzzy and it's thick and but this is the preferred. He likes to use the milkweed, and it's such a beautiful plant, and calling in the butterflies. And so I like to use the milkweed, using it as a medicine, the milkweed itself. Okay. And the other cordage that I like, because it is so fine, is stinging nettle. And so different times of the year, I go back to the same harvesting area. So I'll go in the early spring and I'll pick stinging nettle and use that as food. And you could see that it has a lot of stinging hairs on it. Thus, it has its name, stinging nettle. And so as cordage, though, if you go back in the fall and you pick this plant, they get super tall depending on its growing conditions. It can get like 8 feet tall up north by Canada. I have a friend up there, and they get super tall nettle. I'm impressed with the nettle that I pick when I go down to Bishop. I like to pick there in the spring and the fall, but they'll be, like 6 feet tall, somewhere in there. And so you just crush this and pull out the cordage and use it just like you would anything else, like your dogbane or your milkweed. So this is really, really fine though. And but it's just so beautiful to work with. And in regards to basketry, not only can you use it, as thread or cordage for handles, but also I've had elders tell me that the way that they use the nettles, aside from eating it, is they would go and they would ask it to bite them on their hands and their wrist. So, so it would open up the capillaries of their hands so that they could weave for a long time. And so, uh, so anyway, that was really interesting to me to hear that, and because it does sting, it does have a little burn to it, but you know, it really helped them and supported them, and so they would ask it to bite them so that they could weave longer. Okay. And so this is a deer leg. And so again, I was talking about, you know, men using things. So the guys would also help us out by getting our sinew for us out of the deer leg, but also, you know, we would that's where I get my awls as well, is from that deer leg. And so um, so that's another uh, fiber that you could use. Okay. And in talking about fibers and plants in general here in the Great Basin, this is our pine nut tree. And, you know, we, this is such an important plant to our people. One of the things that we do when you're out collecting is, you know, you get cuts and scrapes and things like that. So this plant not only provides us with food, but it also provides us with medicine. And using the tree teaches us how to use its pitch. And next slide. And so, so one of the things that we also talk about is, you know, everything has a purpose. And so I always think back about that little cartoon, the Charlie Brown, and he goes out and he picks his little Charlie Brown tree, and everyone laughs at him. And why did you pick that, Charlie Brown? Old Lucy was giving him a hard time. And I always think about that. And he thought it was absolutely beautiful and still had use. And so when I'm out in the forest, I always look for those Charlie Brown trees because that's what we make our stir sticks out of. You know, you're looking for one that doesn't have branches and things like that, so that it can turn and you shape that into your spoon. Um, so we use that. I used to make that for my cousin to stir water, and that's what we use when we're making our pine nut soup. Is that stir stick? And so, so that's why I wanted to put that picture in there. That you know, that's also a fiber that we use. And but willow also, you know, with the skin, once we scrape the skin off, when we're working with our baskets, is, you know, you could throw that in water and you can later soak your feet in it. And you know, we get that aspirin, that pain relief from our willow. And so so our willow is really important. Um, and then, but all of the plants are just like our pine nut tree. And like I said, it's pitch. And then even those trees that, you know, are those Charlie Brown trees, you know, we still use those. Okay. And so I just want to go back and just talking about not just the fibers, but when you're out there and you're harvesting different plants and working with the fibers, you know, we get the opportunity to also harvest our our medicines as well. And I love this, what the elder said. He said, if you get sick, eat your traditional foods because you have to feed the Indian in you. And so, you know, our people, we honor our foods and we imitate them. You know, I tease my friend Alan the way that he dances. I go, gee, you dance like a sage hen. You know, he sticks his chest out and he struts around like the sage hen because, you know, we're taught to imitate them. So I challenge you to dance like the sage hen, to love water like watercress, to be fast like the jackrabbit, be resilient like the dandelion, beautiful like our elderberry, strong like our chokecherry, watchful like the deer. And so, so with that, I thank you for joining today. And if you have any questions, I am ready to take questions.
Somebody had their hand up. Somebody raised their hand. I think it was a.
Yeah. Oh, Fred. Oh, he's got a thumbs up. There he is.
And I apologize. I went through that really fast.
Wait, hi Melanie. This is
Hi.
Fred. That was a really
Hi.
good presentation. I was very impressed. You really
Thank
know a
you.
lot of materials, all different types. I was very impressed that you knew them all. All those medicines.
Especially what we call it.
Thank you. I was like, fiber, do they mean fiber like when you eat it, fiber, or fiber from the plants? So I threw a couple in there.
Did you say how long you've been basket weaving?
Well, my grandmother handed me a knife and had me start scraping when I was really young. And so I hold my knife differently than she did. All of my elders, they hold their knife on top and scrape like this. But because my hands were small, I couldn't balance the knife. And so I scraped underneath. And now it's just a bad habit to do it that way. But I started out really young, but being her helper, and I actually didn't start weaving until later, when my let's see, when I was a sophomore in high school, I came in contact with one of my elders from Duckwater, and and she got me going too, and she said, here. And she started a yondu for me, a winnowing tray, and she said, weave it. And I was surprised about that. And so I started weaving. So since I was a sophomore in high school, I started weaving. But prior to that, you know, I was always just helping my grandmother, getting her organized so that she could weave, and then helping her scrape, and running around making sure that her water, everything was ready. And then again, when I was in college, an opportunity came about, and I worked with Hoopa Elder up there, and Tweet. She was a wonderful teacher. But Virginia Sanchez was my teacher in high school. But I still didn't weave. I couldn't call myself a weaver, but I love to harvest, and I would harvest for my elders. And then one day I went to visit my great aunts in Washoe territory, and they actually were holding a Great Basin Basketry Association class. And I showed up and I said, I'm just passing through. I just wanted to come say hello. And they said, here. And they sat me in between them. They handed me that willow and they said, make thread. And no pressure at all. And because they had that expectation and they said, you're going to be teaching this someday, so you're going to learn. And so from that time, I started making thread, and that expectation of them to do it right. And I started to weave from that point. But that was my later college years, and then but really in the past 10 years I started to weave, and it gave me an opportunity to be in nature and to give my children actually the opportunity to be out in nature. So I would sit and scrape willows, get my material ready while I sat and watched my children play and swim, all of those things. So off and on over the years, I've been encouraged by elders to weave. So I hope that answers your question. It was a really long answer, but I'm going to take this year off. I'm in mourning of my mom who recently passed. And I made this medallion for my mother quite a years back, and so I'm wearing that in honor of her.
Oh, well,
Really
thank you.
beautiful.
Oh, sorry to hear about your mother, but the weaving will always bring memories of her closer to you, always the spirits. So basically you've been weaving all your life, basically. So yeah, thank you for sharing again. But I just want to say, as the CEO of the program, we really appreciate your presence here today. And the video will be shared to YouTube so that all your family members can always be able to look back and see you present and talk about your basketry. And I'll send out your check next week, Friday. Okay? So thank you again, Melanie.
I'd like to
So-
say something before we close too, Fred. I'm from North Dakota. Melanie, I appreciated your presentation as well too. And I see a lot of similarities with traditional basket weavers from our part of the country as well too, especially with the willow. It's a good thing and a good tradition to keep alive and stay strong with, to keep the traditions alive. I know there was a couple up here named Rose and Francis Creed that actually received a National Heritage Award from the National Endowment for the Arts about 10 years ago. And it features specifically their basket weaving. I don't know if you had ever heard of them, but that's something that's looked upon favorably in national circles as well too. So, and you do a beautiful job. Congratulations. Also very sorry to hear about your mother. I understand how you're feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do offer classes there at our Stewart Cultural Center and Museum. And so it's coming to that time again. I can help people to prepare their materials. And so I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the first frost. So I'm eagerly waiting to get out there.
Hi, my name's Alyssa, and I got to tune into just a little bit because my boss kept talking to me. But I really enjoyed what you had to share, the little bit that I was able to catch. So I'm definitely going to go back and watch this. And you are a wealth of information, and I definitely want to look more into some of the the stuff you described. I always heard you could use willow for aspirin, but the way you said, you know, you could use it for medicine and explained that was like, wow, I didn't know that. But I also feel like I didn't have a grandma to teach me, you know, and never really had any close elders. So it's really nice that you're keeping this alive and sharing. I my sister is Priscilla, and she actually made me a basket, and I think it was one of her first baskets she might have made up in the area she's from. So I'd like to share that really quick
Mm-hmm.
if I can figure out my video. Oops, hang on. Something's going on.
Priscilla might need to.
Oh, there she is.
I just have to figure out my how to reverse my camera. Oh, here it is.
Ooh, Priscilla, look at you.
I forgot I made that. That's a my iris design I created. It reminds me a lot of Bishop.
Beautiful.
That is
Mm-hmm.
pretty. Oh,
Yes. And I love going up to Northern Cal and working with their material up that way. They have such beautiful material. Mm-hmm. Looks
Yeah,
good.
it's really full circle because me and Alyssa, our grandmother attended boarding school at Stewart. And so for us, you know, specifically to listen and to hear the cultivating of the knowledge of plants, and it really reminds us to continue to keep close to nature, and that's how we keep close to our culture. And so
Yeah.
you know, working with plants and fibers is extremely healing. um
Mm-hmm.
so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. Ush, ush.
Let's see, do we have any more questions in the room?
hey, Priscilla, this is Mary Manahu, and I just wanted to say thank you, Melanie. I was so thrilled to see that you were coming up on this. I just wanted to comment and say that I've had the opportunity to take some classes with Melanie. She is a really marvelous teacher. She's very patient, a lot of fun, very detailed. I love and enjoy taking classes with her. And you're very knowledgeable, and looking forward to some upcoming classes with you, Melanie, when you get back in town. And
Yay.
yay, I know.
Yes. And for Mary to say that, I'm like, yikes, Mary, you're extremely impressive with your baskets that you weave. And all of my baskets are made for heavy duty use, and Mary's beautiful baskets are so delicate. I'm like, I don't know. She does very refined work. So I appreciate working alongside of Mary and learning um, that gracefulness that you have. So thank you.
You're making me blush.
So thank you all for attending. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I'm here at the ATOM conference, and it's in working with museums um, and the work. A lot of what the people are talking about is truly around keeping our culture and our livelihood alive, practicing language, and really reminding people that we're still here, And so it's been such a blessing to be here at ATOM, and yeah, all of the culture in working with all of the fiber in and honoring our men and women who work with the same materials but in different ways. And so I just want to honor all of those men that are practicing, and all of the women, and just it's just such a beautiful way of life. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate you.
All right. Abishai and Buenu. We'll see you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.